What are the consequences of habitat loss for polar bears and other Arctic animals? If you're curious about how the melting of Arctic sea ice is affecting polar bears and other Arctic animals, you're about to find out some startling facts. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the Arctic. Polar bears are one of the most iconic Arctic animals, and they rely heavily on sea ice for their survival. This ice serves as their platform for hunting, breeding, and even resting. However, due to climate change, the sea ice is melting at an alarming rate. A recent study showed that in the southern Beaufort Sea, the polar bear population dropped by 40% between 2001 and 2010, from 1,500 to just 900 bears. This dramatic decline is directly linked to the loss of sea ice, which limits their access to their primary food source, seals. Without sea ice, polar bears have to spend more time on land where they can't hunt effectively. This leads to longer fasting periods, which can result in malnutrition and reduced body condition. For example, in the 1980s, polar bears would spend most of their summer months on sea ice, but now they are spending roughly 2 months on land, which is a significant change. It's not just polar bears that are affected. Walruses also rely on sea ice as resting platforms and safe places for their young. With reduced sea ice, walruses face increased competition for suitable haul-out sites, leading to overcrowding and the risk of stampedes, which can be fatal. The loss of sea ice also limits their access to food resources, impacting their overall health and reproductive abilities. Arctic foxes are another species heavily impacted by the shrinking sea ice. They use the ice as a hunting platform and breeding ground. As the ice diminishes, their access to prey like seals and seabirds becomes more challenging, making it harder for them to secure enough food for themselves and their young. This reduction in food sources can lead to population decline and reduced reproductive success. Musk oxen, which inhabit the Arctic tundra, are also feeling the effects. Although they are adapted to harsh winters, the decline in sea ice affects the availability of forage plants on land. This reduction in nutritious vegetation can lead to malnutrition, reduced body condition, and increased susceptibility to diseases. The melting of sea ice also has broader ecosystem impacts. For instance, it allows killer whales to move further north, enabling them to prey on narwhal, beluga, and bowhead whales. This change in predator-prey dynamics can disrupt the entire food web of the Arctic. In addition, the receding sea ice alters the seasonal activities, population numbers, and migratory patterns of other important Arctic species like caribou and salmon. This can result in food shortages for people living in the Arctic, especially indigenous communities, jeopardizing their livelihoods, cultures, and health. So the consequences of habitat loss in the Arctic are far-reaching and multifaceted. It's not just about the polar bears, it's about the entire ecosystem and the people who depend on it. Understanding these impacts is crucial for taking action to protect these vulnerable species and their habitats.